Thank you, Ms. Campbell, and good morning, Ben Woody, Assistant City Manager, City of Asheville. I've got a lot of information to cover today. As I think many folks know, our Water Resources Department has been able to make a tremendous amount of progress. So we'll start with Northfork Reservoir. Northfork, the reservoir that services the majority of our water system, we are continuing to feed highly chlorinated water from that reservoir directly into our distribution system. Our Water Resources Department is currently able to flow about 12 million gallons per day into the distribution system, and we're using that right now to support flushing of the water system as well as expansion of water into the distribution system. One thing we've talked a lot about in these previous meetings is our ability to reduce the sediment or the murkiness of the reservoir. Later this week, we hope to begin the process of an in-reservoir treatment that should increase the rate of settling in the reservoir, which will then allow us to begin treating that water through our water treatment plant. A little bit of good news out in the watershed. As I've said before, we have a highly protected watershed that feeds the Northfork Reservoir. We have reports from our staff that clear water has returned to the streams. So our streams that are feeding that reservoir are now feeding it with clean, clear water. So again, that's good news. Every day, multiple times a day, we have our laboratory staff that will continue to focus on bacteriological testing to make sure that as we expand water into the distribution system from the reservoir, we're making that as safe as possible. So we'll start with an image. We have kind of a map. We over the weekend, I think in response to a question, Clay Chandler, our PIO, Public Information Officer of Water, said we would provide a map. So we've tried to do that today. This is very general. As we've said before, we don't always know where water is going to go, and that's subject to conditions in the system. But what I will say is on Sunday, October 13th, so yesterday, the Water Resources Department was finally able to begin supplying water to areas west of Swannanoa. So that was a big milestone for us. Actually, the damage to the water system in Swannanoa was more severe than expected, which is almost hard to believe, but that were the conditions over the weekend. But our water maintenance crews were able to get that water yesterday to Hall Creek Junction. Hall Creek Junction is a major distribution system for us. That is a point where the water can begin to spread into other parts of the community. So getting the water to Hall Creek Junction yesterday was a major milestone that we were able to reach. As many of you know, and I've had people text me personally, we have water restoration in the Hall Creek area up to South Tunnel Road. We're preparing to begin sending water to the Fairview area and higher elevation areas of South Asheville that currently don't have water. We also have preparations in place to begin sending water to our downtown area and areas in North Asheville. And so as water begins to return to the system and we fill these pipes, we'll also begin turning on pump stations, because one thing about Asheville, we have a lot of elevation, and we'll be able to start moving water hopefully into higher elevation areas as well. And what you can see on the map, the area in red is what we have put under a boil water notice. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have water right now, but it means we feel we are close to getting water into the distribution system in these areas shown in red. And just for context, that is really east of the French Broad River. But I also want to remind residents that the process of restoration is going to be slow and incremental. It's going to move in a westerly direction. We've said that. But just to give some context for the scale of restoration, our water system has a total of 54 unique pressure zones that have to be managed and put water into. So there's 54 of those. We have 1,800 miles of city pipes that we have to fill with water and pressurized. But additionally, we have to fill all your pipes with water as well. So we're talking thousands and thousands of miles of pipes that we need to put water into. The city's pipes and your private pipes in your house or your business. And then finally, we have 37 water storage tanks that we need to fill to fully pressurize the system. We need about 21 million gallons of water to fill those storage tanks. So we have a lot of pipes and tanks to fill to return this system to normal. And again, we are filling those with non-potable water at the moment. So we're going to advance to the next slide. I want to talk a little bit what that looks like. I think Clay Chandler over the weekend kind of called this like playing a game of whack-a-mole. So I'm going to show you what that looks like with a couple of pictures. This picture you see in slide 2, this is a little bit earlier in the week, but this is an example of what a break can look like in a pressurized service line. So this is a very small line. And when it was pressurized, you can see that essentially it creates a geyser that comes out of the ground. So clearly the bigger the line that has a break, the bigger the water geyser will be. As we find these, we have to make these repairs to these pipes. Another good example from yesterday, this is a 6-inch water main off New Hog Creek Road. So this is very close to the intersection of New Hog Creek and Tunnel Road. We actually learned about this from a resident. So again, this was reported to us from a resident. The video shows the line that has water coming out of it. Now we've reduced the pressure on that line. That's why it's not spewing like a geyser, so to speak. But we reduce the pressure, but we have to do that because we don't want to further damage the roadbed that's adjacent to that line. And I'll note as we find these lines and make these repairs, they're not always going to be easy. I think it's pretty clear to say that's going to be a difficult repair for the water department to make, given its location and terrain they have to deal with. So what I want to say today is a good kind of message for everybody listening or watching. Don't assume that we know where the water main breaks are, because we may not. And if you see a water main break, please report that to our water customer service line. The phone number for that is 828-251-1122. Again, water customer service, it is 24/7. And you can report water main breaks to 828-251-1122. So next, let's talk about flushing the system. This is a really important part of our recovery. What you see here on the slide is one of our Water Resources Department crews. We had to get them to stop and pose for us to take this picture. But we're very thankful to them and all they're doing. And again, flushing the system is going to be really important for recovery. So what you see here, this is a hydrant off Beechwood Road near the Hall Creek Distribution Junction. And you can see pretty clearly how sediment filled that water is coming out of the hydrant. And the reason that's not how our reservoir water looks. The reason that water is so dark and sediment is we have dirt and sediment that has entered our system through the broken distribution line. So there is, sediment laden water that was entering our system through these broken lines that we've been repairing. Also, when you lose pressure to a water system, a lot of water that may remain, that also settles to the lowest points in the system. So when we first start flushing, the water is going to look really bad. But I'll show you another picture. This is a photo that shows a hydrant later that day at Crockett Avenue in Tunnel Road. So we're getting close to the mall area. And you can see the quality of the water has improved as we're able to flush the system. And I'm going to show a side-by-side hydrant picture now. Just want to note the water will start looking better, but it is still not safe for consumption, and you still are under a boil water notice. The last picture I want to show about flushing, you too can help with recovery. Once water service returns to your residence or your business, we're asking that you flush your private lines for about 15 minutes. You can do this through your bathtub faucet or your outdoor faucet. When you do decide to do this, make sure that you have closed the valves to your hot water heater or any other appliances such as an ice maker. And what you see, this is a photo that I was able to get this morning. So this is a residence in Hall Creek, and they spent about 10 minutes flushing from an outdoor hose bib. And you can see the progression of the cloudiness that's leaving the water. So the picture on the upper left was the first flushing they did. I asked them to empty the bucket after each of these, and you can see as they flush their lines in their house, their water that feeds their house becomes progressively cleaner, still has sediment, but that's going to let you start to use it to flush toilets and things like that. So again, we're not asking you to go fill swimming pools or anything like that. We're still in a measure of conservation. But if you could flush your lines for about 15 minutes, I think you'll begin to see a noticeable difference in the quality of water that's coming to your house. And so I'm going to end this today with, we're pressurizing the system. We're using the direct water or water directed from the reservoir. It's highly chlorinated. We're doing as much disinfection as we can under the conditions. And just to remind everybody, you are under a boil water notice in the Northfork distribution area. You are under a boil water advisory in the Mills River service area. There's some regulatory distinctions between those terms, but the directions to you are the same no matter what. If you're going to use the water for drinking, cooking, or brushing teeth, you need to boil it vigorously for 1 minute. I would recommend, if all possible, to continue to use bottled water for those functions as best you can. But again, if the bottled water is unavailable to you, you are able to boil that water for 1 minute to be able to use. After you've boiled it, you also are able to strain that boiled water through some sort of filter if you need to do that. But again, after boiled for a minute, it is safe to consume, And just as a reminder, the water is also safe for laundry, hand washing, washing dishes, and showering. Just be careful not to consume the water. And again, the city is advising that before you begin to use appliances, please flush the water out of your bathtub or your outdoor faucet. And I'm now going to turn it back over to City Manager Deborah Campbell to finish her remarks.